Welcome to this podcast that's part of the Startup Onramp Female Founders Program. This program is supported by the Queensland Government, and that's enabled us to deliver mentoring, online learning, and cohort-based programs at no cost to female founders all across Queensland. And in this podcast episode, I'm really pleased to be able to welcome Kim Burns, one of the co-founders of Humaneer. Hey, Kim.
Hi. Hello.
Kim is a successful entrepreneur and is one of the team behind a company called Humaneer, which started out as building a community for human resources professionals and has added into the mix an AI productivity tool for businesses. And I'm really looking forward, Kim, to asking you about this journey, because I know that you've been on this roller coaster of a startup ride for a couple of years now. You've made a lot of progress. You've learned a lot along the way. So maybe if we start with kind of the backstory. I know you and your co-founders come from an HR background. You've got deep domain expertise. Can you just tell us about the beginnings of Humaneer and how you decided to quit your corporate jobs and take the leap into startup land?
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Colin, for inviting me on to share the story. It has been, when you think about it, it has been like 2 years, and time flies when you're having fun and constantly learning. So a little bit of the backstory for us. So I've got two other co-founders, Corrine and Annie, and we've all had a really similar career path within HR. We've started sort of early on in our HR career and then sort of grew through the ranks to quite senior roles within organizations. And we didn't really know each other, but in 2023, we all kind of burnt out from our roles. It was very intense. We all had young families, and for individual reasons, we all decided to take a step away from sort of working internally in HR. Corrine and I connected because we were feeling that sort of loneliness and that overwhelm from our roles. And we got talking about building a community for HR people and really being authentic about that. So we were really sort of thinking about how can we support HR as a broader industry? How can we kind of bring it into some more modern day learning? And so we set about building the world's first HR support app. And I laugh about that now because it's quite funny, because it turns out no one wants an app. But it took us about 8 months of building it ourselves on no-code platforms, building it on the wrong platforms, building it using Fiverr and all of those little things to try and piece it together. And yeah, it turns out that no one in HR actually wanted to use an app
Why
anyway.
is that? I mean, everyone uses apps, so just talk through the
Yeah.
logic there.
So we did a lot of customer calls. So one of the things we did at the start of our journey was through our networks, sort of tell everyone what we were building. And the theory was great. HR wanted more support. They wanted a place to just be authentic and share their stories and feel like they weren't judged for getting it wrong. They wanted to learn. Absolutely, they wanted to learn. And we don't have a lot of opportunities outside of sort of certificates or tertiary education. So they were really, really excited about that part. But it was only when we sort of got a prototype of the app in people's hands did they say to us that they didn't feel super comfortable using their mobiles in a workplace, especially when we put 10-minute micro learning videos on there, and they felt that when they were watching it in their workplace, it was a bit weird. Even though they're watching work-related content, not everyone would have known about it. And so we thought, oh yeah, that makes sense. I think there's probably, look, honestly, a little bit of us that got really caught up in like building an app, because 2 years ago, everyone was building an app, and that was really cool. So I think that's, one of the biggest pieces of learning straight up is like, are you building the right thing for your customers? And turns out we weren't, but it was a really quick pivot for us.
Yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon because there's lots of startup founders that I've worked with who have, like you, domain expertise, and they deeply understand the customer and the problem that they're tackling, but there are still underlying assumptions that you can't intuitively just answer them by saying, well, I understand what HR people need. You actually have to run experiments. So it's interesting that when you obviously learned that, and it was perhaps an expensive learning experience, but you've gone on from there. Like you've still built this community, albeit in a different format. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that community looks like today?
And that was, we look back, and even though the app didn't work out the way we thought it would, what we did through that period of building the app was also build a community and momentum behind what we were doing. So we were really, like, we literally decided to work together. Kareen set up a merch store. We got ourselves hoodies straight away. And that was it. And then about a month later, we started posting on LinkedIn. This is what we were building. And we slowly started to sort of gather support behind us. One of the things I'm really grateful that we did was create a wait list for our community and for the app. So right at the beginning, we were able to start taking people on the journey. So with that wait list, we actually sent weekly emails. Just, this is what we're doing. This is who we're talking to. And that, I think, really helped people feel like they knew us and feel like they were part of building something.
That's actually really important to unpack, because I see so many founders that find that really difficult. Because I mean, I think psychologically there's this kind of challenge where you're building something and you're not really sure if it's going to be great or not. And when it's in the kind of early phases of development, it's always pretty crappy. And so I think there's a psychological barrier there for a lot of people that says, well, I don't want to show the world the crappy thing that I'm working on that may end up being no good.
Yeah.
But you've got to do it. So like, and a lot of what we work with founders on in our programs is along this kind of line of, you have to get out there, you have to get early customer engagement. So how did you do that? Did you have to overcome a psychological barrier, or did you just say, we're doing it?
No, absolutely. And it probably took us a good couple of months to find our voice and to feel comfortable sharing authentically what we were doing. But we found when we weren't doing that, we wouldn't get the same. It was pretty clear. We just wouldn't get the same response. We were lucky again, that not lucky, but we do have that deep domain expertise. So we come to talking about our problem with sort of some trust and credibility. And so we just really lent into that. And we decided really, really early on that we were just going to be authentic, because people were either going to connect to it or they weren't. And if they didn't, that was also equally as okay. And it took, again, it wasn't easy. Like we had to pull ourselves up. And if you look back at sort of how we spoke at the beginning to even how we spoke 6 months in to even how we speak now, you can see the evolution of that. And because we were able to build such a great tight-knit community, and because we were on the phone, like we were having phone calls with people all over the world would find us on LinkedIn, and we'd jump on a call and we'd just try and understand, like, what are their pain points right now. We actually indirectly became like some semi HR therapists, because some of the calls we got on was just like they needed to release what was happening and they hadn't been able to do that before. So we invested a lot of time up front building those relationships and really understanding what was going on in their world. And that created that safe space for us to then share back to them just as vulnerably as they had shared to us, really.
That's really interesting, because I think that's a really encouraging signal to hear from your target customers, your users, that they have a really acute pain point that you might be able to help address. Like, obviously not through therapy in the longer term, but it's a really interesting signal that says, HR professionals find their jobs really challenging for a bunch of reasons. And I know that's kind of the kind of theme through everything you've done is about making, their work easier and less painful, and streamlining a bunch of things. You also said about posting on LinkedIn, and I think obviously in the space that you're in, LinkedIn is the forum to be on. But I've been really interested to watch over the time that I've known Humaneer, since you did our pre-accelerator program right back at the very beginning. There's been a constant flow of good content, like meaningful content, not kind of spammy stuff, but actually value first content, which is actually not easy to do.
Oh,
Do you want to talk about how you've actually maintained that cadence and
absolutely.
produced useful content?
And look, it is hard. It is hard, and we do have to be intentional. And you'll probably see that there'll be periods where we're not as active on LinkedIn because our focus is elsewhere. And then you'll see us be sort of really active. Again, that was such a big learning for us. And we probably overcomplicated it because there is a lot of information around about how to, generate the most likes and engagement and the LinkedIn algorithm. And I guess the biggest takeaway that we've learned is just post authentically as you and your thoughts. Don't worry about what the algorithm's going to do. Don't worry about that. Oh, Colin, I'm embarrassed to say, like, there was a period where we would go so far down into like, how do we make our posts go, do better, that we'd like our own posts and don't put the links in the comments, and trying to, leverage that. But really what's worked best for us is just to talk about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and why it matters. If people engage with it, great. If they don't, that's also okay. And it is about consistency. It
Yeah, for
is,
sure.
you've got to do it.
And I think the why is often lost when people post on socials, particularly when they're, one of their motivations is to build an audience, and their business will need that audience in the future. I think the default for a lot of people is to go, oh, I'll tell you about our product and how awesome it is and the features, and I mean, you've got to weave that in somewhere along the way, but I think it's actually really important, and you've done a really good job of this, of talking about, this is just useful content. We're going to, tell you what we're doing. We're going to share a few insights.
Yeah. And taking people, again, for us, it's just been taking people on the journey. And we'll find that when we talk to people, if they're not already part of the community, they've heard about us.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
because they've come across our post on LinkedIn, or they've seen someone in their network like one of our posts. So it's just getting that level of awareness, that kind of warming up of people, so that when we do cross paths, they're like, "Oh yeah, I've heard of you. Tell me what it is you do." I'm
yeah,
like, "Great."
for sure. Back to the kind of founding story of Humaneer. One thing that's really good and actually a little bit unusual about the founding journey is that you and Corrine kind of jumped into this full time and said, "We're doing this." Just talk me through like how you came to that decision that this is what you're going to do and you're going to throw yourselves into it, in a meaningful way from the very beginning.
I think whether we were we're very optimistic. I think that's one of the things. And we definitely thought it would take sort of 4 months between deciding we're going to do this, building the app, and getting it out there, that we would start to make revenue. Which we have learned 2 years later is not the case. It takes a lot longer than you think to sort of make revenue. But I think we were both, and I can't speak obviously for Corrine in person, but definitely for myself, I knew that I wasn't going to go back into HR right then and right now. And we just so loved what we were doing. And personally, we were able to, sell some assets and do some things that allowed us that kind of space to work on it full time. But again, I think we thought it would be quicker than it was.
Mm, yeah.
um,
Well, they say that every
so-
entrepreneur needs to have an unreasonable level of optimism,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you wouldn't do it.
And you get these sort of flag, like, flag points along the way where you get that momentum and you get that excitement, and you're like, yep, it's going to happen now, and it's going to happen now. But that I love the startup world because you literally don't know what's going to happen any single day. We could have 50 customers come through the door one day, or we could have 10 leavers the next day. We could have this great conversation that leads to this amazing partnership. every day you're just like, oh, things could
Yeah.
change.
So you said you started off with a high level of optimism and fair amount of commitment in terms of putting your time and money into getting this started. What was the decision making process as you went along? I mean, every founder says the same thing. Obviously, I thought it was going to take this long, but it took a lot longer to really get traction. What was the kind of internal decision making, and how did you maintain the momentum to say, look, we know we're heading in the right direction? Were there signals that you were getting from
Yeah.
customers that kind of said, "Yep, we're really starting to break through"?
Yeah, I think that's right. It's the signals that we got from not only the accelerators that we were part of, but also from the customers. Because again, the whole journey, we have been hand in hand with our customers. So what gave us momentum was when we would say, hey, this is what we're doing, come check this out. And they'd be like, yeah, that's fantastic. Like, we love it. So, and I think the big thing, like if we start to talk about the product, that's when things changed for us and our view of what we could build got bigger.
Hmm.
And
Let's
that's,
talk about that,
yeah,
because
okay.
that's kind of like I think that's kind of where the story starts to really
Yeah.
get pretty exciting, because you have pivoted pretty
Mm,
significantly in terms of the product direction.
correct. Yeah, and again, that's one of the things I love about being in a startup is the ability to be adaptable and react quickly. And that's what was happening as Karina and I were building out the global Humaneer community and the brand. We noticed that we always kind of knew that we wanted, like, our core purpose was to make HR easier. And we realized that what we were doing with the community was great, but we weren't addressing sort of the reason that HR is really hard. And
So you're kind of
to
catching people after they found it was
correct,
really hard.
correct. It was like, yeah, we can give you a nice hug over here, but ideally we don't want you to get over here that you need the hug. Um, and it was about 18 months ago, I'm looking at the months, about 18 months, 20 months ago, when AI started to become more available, there was more products coming onto the market. It felt like we could understand AI a little bit more and how we could use it. And so we saw how people were currently using ChatGPT, because I think it was really ChatGPT then. If you think back over the 18 months, how many, like Perplexity, Claude, like Claude was a baby and just doing RAG back then. Perplexity wasn't, I don't even think, like largely on the market. Gemini, like nothing, Copilot, like these didn't exist then. And I think that's one of our learnings is that AI is moving so quickly, so quickly. So we thought we can actually do something here to help HR automate some core tasks, some core admin tasks that they do using AI. And so we actually connected with a AI engineer who built a prototype for us that kind of proved it could be done. Again, we showed it to our community that were following us. We had some like super fans that we got them on and tested it. And now if we look back at how clunky it was, it's amazing. But the core reason for why we were doing what we were doing got traction. Like people like, yes, this is really great. And so with
That concept of a super
again,
fan, I think, is actually really important, because
mm,
again, if you look at what most people do, there's often a challenge to say, right, we're serving a market of whether it's HR professionals or some other group. Let's reach all of them. Like, let's go and get out there and talk to 1,000 HR professionals. But I think, at least in the early days, it really helps to find the super users or the early adopters, the people who are maybe they're already tinkering with AI themselves and they kind of think, I can really see the potential. How did you do that? Like, did you deliberately say we're looking for kind of risk taking early adopters, or did you just see who showed up when you put content out to your community?
yeah, because we had this, we hadn't even launched the community at that time. We were in the middle of pivoting from building our own app to to a product that was already on the market. So we hadn't even launched, but it was through engagement on LinkedIn. It was through having phone calls with people it was through people emailing us their thoughts that we kind of picked, I think there was about 10 or so at that time. But one of the things we learned along our journey really early on was something called the mum test.
Hmm. Yep.
I'm sure you've talked about that with your cohorts, but that was, I mean, that was pretty eye-opening to us because when you first start talking about your product to your family and friends, everyone goes, yeah, that's a great idea. Yes, amazing. So we also have been really clear with our early users and our super fans that we need their honest feedback. They can't just sort of say, yeah, this is amazing. We've been really open and we've been really receptive to their feedback. It's not a defensive thing for us. It's like, yes, great, that's a fantastic idea. And then we'll circle back and we can say, we've done that because of this, or we haven't done it because we're going to do X, Y, Z. But that, I think, don't get super fans that are just going to tell you your product's amazing. You need super fans that will pick it apart for you.
You've probably seen that meme where that it's about startups figuring out what features to build into their product, and then
Mm.
there's a picture of a pizza that's got some chicken and some marshmallows and
Yeah.
a lemon, and if you listen to everything that your users tell you that they need, you'll end up building a Frankenstein product.
And I would say that has become a more prominent discussion for us as we've got our MVP building version of Mac out into the world. Because once it's out there, you'll have a customer say, oh, it would be great if we could do this. And then that customer will talk to me and I'll go to Annie and Kareen and say, oh my God, this is a brilliant idea. How about we do this? And then they'll get someone come to them and they'll get someone come to them. And all of a sudden we've got 7 ideas that are kind of fluff around the edges. So Annie, as our chief product officer, is really good at like just keeping us focused on like, these are the things that we're focusing on right now, and we can definitely add things to the roadmap. The other thing, sorry, I would learn to say with that, something we've learned as well, your customers might come and tell you, oh, I want that feature. Dig a little bit deeper. Why are they asking for that? Is there a way they can get that already in your product? Because when customers have come to us and asked, once we dig down, we realize, oh, maybe you don't actually need that after all, because our product will do X, Y, Z for you.
Yeah, for sure. I was talking to another founder recently, and they're in a more mature company, but they've actually put in place a spreadsheet. Like, it's the simplest way to do this. They have a spreadsheet internally where every time a customer suggests a new feature or something that internally they go, oh, this might be a cool thing to add, they put it in the spreadsheet, and then they have a column for how timely do we need. Is this time critical for some of our customers? And then they rate it out of 10, and then they have another column that says, how many of our customers do we think need this? And if they don't know, they put a 0. And if they're very confident that a lot of them do, they put a 9 or 10. And they have several other scoring mechanisms, and they basically do it as a quantitative
Mm-hmm.
scoring decision tree. And they basically say, unless it scores above a certain threshold,
We
we're
don't
not
do.
building it. Like,
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
great.
And they don't need to think about it anymore.
Yeah, our customers have definitely informed what we prioritize. So we've got a new feature release coming out next week, I think, which customers have talked about sort of since we released the product. So we know that that's something that they want, that's going to really add value. We've got ideas down the future of things we want to add. But again, we need to make sure that that's what is critical for the customer to buy. Is it going to make them buy, and is it going to make them stay?
Yeah,
It's kind
for
of the
sure.
two things we think about.
Yeah, that makes good sense. Let's talk about AI for a minute.
Okay.
When we started our female founders program, we had maybe 1 in 10 startups were working on something AI related. It's now like 8 or 9 out of 10. So, as you said, like, the capabilities of the underlying models are advancing really rapidly. What have you learned in terms of like the capabilities of AI to do like commercially useful stuff in a kind of reliable and repeatable way? And what are the kind of tools or technologies that you found have been valuable for Humaneer?
Yeah. So we built our product on AI. So it is an AI product. And we really intentionally have gone agnostic in the products that we use. And there's many reasons for that. But we look at what products are out there in the market that can do what we need it to do, and how can we integrate that. So what we've learned through our journey, and as these new products come into market and their capabilities increase, there's not a one size fits all AI model. And that's sometimes, I think we talk about it in human resources, there's not one model that does, or one HRIS that does everything you need. The same with AI. There is not one model out there for our purposes that does everything that we need to help power our product Mac. And so we've been really lucky as we built Mac to work with an AI strategist over in the States who has been really useful in helping us broaden our perspective on what AI can do. Couple of reasons for that. Because I don't think any of us really know the full extent of the capabilities of what AI can do. Number one, we're still limited to what we think we know. For the second reason, the States they're pretty advanced in terms of how they're using AI. Australia's lagging behind in the adoptability of not only for businesses that are adopting it, but how we're sort of building with AI. So we've been really lucky through our strategist over there to partner and work with some AI products that aren't really well known here in Australia. So we've been really lucky in our journey to work with Leon, who is our strategist based in the States, and he's been able to introduce us to early stage products that are getting built there that we've been able to leverage into our product here in Mac. So we're seeing just a lot more creativity and innovation in some of the products that are coming out in the States, which, it will eventually get here. But on the flip side as well, we are working with lots of HR and business owners, and how people are adopting AI within organizations here in Australia there's such a spectrum.
I've been really surprised, like talking to a lot of larger businesses, that there is, as you say, a spectrum, but the average seems to be that people within those organizations view AI as, you ask a question of ChatGPT and you get an answer a bit like a glorified Google search. And like, it's good at answering questions, but that's only a very small part of what it can be used for.
Yeah. And when we speak to our customers and people sort of in our ecosystem for our product, we will say, are you using AI? 90% will say yes, they're using ChatGPT or Copilot. As you said, they're using ChatGPT to ask a question. It's risky to take ChatGPT on its word. Or else they're using it to like rewrite an email or help me come up with an idea, which again, great use cases. We use ChatGPT. I use ChatGPT all the time. But there is so much more that we can be doing, but there's a fear. Generally, I think there's a fear, and again, I can only speak from our customers and the ecosystem that we work in. There's a fear of, I don't know what I don't know. This is going to take my job. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
Because I think organizations don't know where to start.
Yeah, there seems to be a risk aversion when it comes to AI. And I think I'd agree with what you said about the US. There seems to be a much more optimistic view in the business world that says, here's something we can use to go faster and to do more and to do things that weren't previously possible. Whereas I think in Australia, a lot of businesses, this is not true of startups, but certainly other kinds of businesses are kind of looking at AI as, oh, that's scary. I don't really want to engage with it. But it's kind of like, in a way, it's a bit like climate change in that it's inevitable. You've got to accept that that's just the future.
I was at an event last week in Brisbane, Something Tech, and I saw a slide that was up on the screen that said, to get to 100 million users, it took the internet 7 years. to reach 100 million users. It took AI 2 months.
Yep. Yeah, and what's OpenAI? I think the last figures I saw were 800 million, something like that.
It's
So it's extraordinary growth.
it's extraordinary growth, but I think where we're going to get to now is like intentional use and ethical use and sustainable use. And that's something that we think about a lot because we obviously play in the AI space with our product Mac. We want to make sure, particularly for where we work and in the HR space, dealing with people, we've intentionally built our product to not make decisions. So there is always for us a human in the loop. And that aligns with a lot of the legislation we're seeing coming out of the EU and the draft legislation here in Australia around what AI can and cannot make decisions about in workplaces. So I think I I'm I'm worried that we're going to start to see organizations feel like they need to get on the AI bandwagon and, slap tools in here and use this there. One, not actually being as efficient and productive as they can because they don't really understand how they can leverage it. And on the other hand, getting AI to make decisions or be part of decision making or increasing the bias that already exists. So, whilst we're really excited about how AI can support organizations and people, there is also concern about how that's going to be adopted.
Yeah, for sure. And I know you've put a lot of effort into the kind of guardrails part of Mac so that it's it can be relied on for what's obviously important work. This isn't kind of trivial stuff. It's people's employment
Yeah.
and workplace stuff. Do you want to just talk a little bit about what Mac is, like what kind of functionality you've built and how you've gone about doing that?
Yes, absolutely. We're actually really excited. And every time I use it to show someone, I go, yeah,
Mm.
it's great. So we built Mac as an intelligent HR assistant. Originally, we thought that our primary users would be HR people who would go, wow, this can 10x what I do. The reason we thought that is because there's two main features at the moment that we've got with Mac, and that is you can ask Mac a question. It will generate a compliant and cited response for you. It will help build your capability and understanding why we do the things we need to do in HR, but also it generates process steps for you. It generates templates for you, policy documents, guidance. There is so much admin when it comes to dealing with people, whether you're in HR or you're a business owner. There is so much compliance, and that's only increasing. We've had 11 or so sort of legislative updates in the last 24 months, just here in Australia alone. The criminal liability now on business owners is increasing. The onus is getting increasing on employers as well, particularly around psychosocial hazards. There's like the employment landscape is definitely shifting sort of to employer risk. And just no one has time to know all this. Like it's a lot. Lots of businesses and HR, do things under resourced. And so we
Yeah.
wanted to build this product to say, hey, use Mac as like your assistant, your HR brain, and we will help you get your answers, build your policies, build your templates, draft your emails. And so that's one of our features. Our second feature there is that we've built a dedicated AI note taker. Again, it's got a HR brain though. So another large part of the job when you're in HR or dealing with people as a manager or a business owner is you've got to take notes. If you're having conversations, if you want to performance manage someone and a business owner comes to like a HR or HR consultant or a lawyer and says, I want to fire this person, they will say, have you taken notes of all your conversations? And they will say, no. And then we will say, well, now we've got to start the process. So note taking and record keeping is huge in dealing with people. And so we've built a dedicated note taker that you can bring into all your people meetings. It'll transcribe your conversation accurately, and then it will generate the documents that you need. So if you need to write a file note, you click a button, it's there. If you need to write a performance improvement letter, you click a button, it's there. So it's really taking away that administration and that compliance risk for HR and business owners. It's
It's really
cool.
interesting because we talk a lot with founders about value propositions and being able to articulate them and show how your solution maps onto the problem your customer has and all this good stuff. But you've actually done a really good job of identifying kind of two customer groups and having a value proposition that kind of maps onto each. So for HR professionals, you take away a lot of the admin work and allow them to, like you say, 10x themselves in terms of productivity. But then for business owners, you're giving them a new capability. And like I can see the potential for that because a lot of SMEs in particular, like it doesn't make sense for them to employ a full-time HR person, maybe not even a part-time person, but you've still got a lot of businesses that, for lots of reasons, including liability, they need to understand this stuff.
Correct. If you have a business and you have one employee, then you need to know what you're doing. Basically. And, what people are doing now, especially as, an SME business owner is you're Googling, you're asking ChatGPT, you're trying to work out, is that right? Is that wrong? You're spending hundreds of dollars on expensive lawyers or consultants that, once they come in and then they leave, they're not there anymore. That building capability piece is something that we're really proud of because it means that, eventually our end goal is that everyone feels more confident in dealing with people issues and therefore people are treated better in their organizations.
I want to ask you about the tech skills within the team and how you've kind of morphed over the couple of years that you've been building the business. So the founders are HR professionals, and you were saying before that you've engaged with various external experts to help you with AI strategy and help you with building the product. Talk to me about how you've done that and like what have some of the learnings been? What's worked? What hasn't? What advice would you give other people who are kind of looking at that product development cycle?
I don't even know where to start with that, Colin, because it's definitely probably been one of our biggest learnings through our journey because we are three co-founders that have come up, are not software engineers by trade. But we are now in a comfortable space where we can call ourselves tech founders because whilst we might not be writing the code, the vision, the planning, the roadmap, what we're building is all us. And particularly sort of our chief product officer, Annie. She more than Corinne and I, she's in there. She's understanding the back end. We know all of us know how Mac works. We might not have coded it, but we know the architecture of our product. It is a frustration of ours. And I would only probably say, again, confidently 2 years in, that when people say, oh, you're a non-technical founding team, that kind of grates us, to be honest. But at the beginning, we were proudly saying, hey, we're non-technical founders, like, help us build this thing. And with that lack of confidence, it took us down the route of engaging with and working with some teams that just weren't aligned and weren't delivering. And we knew that because we were missing delivery milestones, but we didn't have the confidence because when we would push back, the teams would like spew technical terms at us and we'd go, oh, okay, well, you must be right. 2 years on, after some very tough months where we've had to be very confident in our ability and understanding of what's happening and what's not. We are now working with an amazing outsourced at the moment tech team that's located in New Zealand. Annie, our chief product officer, is also in New Zealand, so we're very close to our tech team.
Mm.
But there's a mutual respect and understanding there, which I think is been critical to help us move as fast as we have the past couple of months.
Mm. That's really interesting. I think, I mean, if you look at other founding teams that are domain experts rather than software engineers, there does seem to be this really crucial transition that the successful teams go through, and it's pretty much what you described. You know, you figure it out to a level that you can engage meaningfully with your development team and actually have a pretty solid idea of whether they're performing and what direction they should be going in. And it really worries me when I see people who say, I'm not a software developer, and so I've just paid some money to some agency, and more or less cross my fingers that they come up
Mm-hmm.
with the right output, because that
Mm-hmm.
often doesn't work.
No, I got a big talking to early on in our journey at a co-working space up here when we were this was when we were building the app as well. And we had outsourced some of the build to like an individual developer. And yeah, I got a really big talking to from a product person who was like, this is your product. Like, this is yours. Like, you need to manage that person like this is your product. Don't just let it go and be based on their timeline. And, it's like you need to take accountability for this. If you don't know, learn, ask. But this is, and I was like, oh, okay. So very lucky that was about 6 months in. And look, it took a little while to get confident, I think, in that space. But very early on, it was like, hey, this is your idea. This is your product. You need to own and manage people working for you to deliver on that. Tough
Yeah,
love. It was a bit of
makes a lot
tough
of
love.
sense. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
it was tough.
So if we look at where Humaneer is at now, you've made a lot of progress and you're starting to get some really meaningful traction. Do you want to just well, I want to ask you a couple of things. One is like, what are some of the learnings that we haven't touched on that might be useful to other founders, particularly female founders who are kind of early in that journey and saying, well, all right, there's a bunch of things that I've got to figure out. I'm always a big fan of figuring things out by asking other people who've already figured it out. Don't blindly, just follow their advice, obviously, but that there's an opportunity to short circuit at least some of the learning curve rather than do it all by trial and error. So
Well,
what are some of the things that you've kind of learned that you think, yeah, that was, maybe useful to others?
gosh, there's so many, honestly, Colin. I mean, that product example that I just shared was a massive one. Took a little while to really feel confident in doing that. We've learned, like, we're really focused right now on our go-to-market strategy and sales. And so we've been really digging into how do you do that? We spent so long on the build and running our community. We're like, oh, now we've got to go to market. And that's hard. That is really hard. So what we've been doing to help shift that is connecting in with, again, founders that have, might be 6 to 12 to 18 months down the track, and literally we met with the founder yesterday and we sat with them, and he took us through like his sales strategy. At something that we've learned. The other thing is, exactly as you said, though, is ask for guidance and help. We are happy to put our hands up, find someone or a product that we really love and reach out to the founder. 9 times out of 10, they're so willing to give you, half an hour of their time. Likewise, for us, we are equally the same to support, people that are earlier on in their journey. The other lesson that I think we learnt through this is that don't let your business consume you. You aren't your business. If things are going well, that's fantastic. If things are going bad, that's okay, but you are not your business. And make sure that you don't let it consume you. We've all got families and friends. And we have gone through periods where we've had to like say, hey, we're losing ourselves in this.
Mm. Mm. Yep.
We're building this for our future, for our families, but so we can have a life, let's not forget to have that life.
Yeah. So in practical terms, how do you do that? Like
Yeah.
what's your advice for people who's obviously, you can work crazy hours, you can throw yourself into building your business.
Mm.
How practically have you said, well, okay, there's some boundaries and we'll remember
Yeah.
to actually, you know, do other things too.
Yeah. I think again, we work as a founding team of three. And I think that allows us probably a little bit more flexibility and leeway, especially as a solo founder. I know a lot of solo founders, and I particularly like solo working mums. And I'm like, I don't know how you do that. Like, I have hats off to you. So for us, I can talk about how we manage that within our team is a couple of ways. One, we're supportive of each other. So if someone's sick, like go, like there's two of us to handle it. We always talk about where we are, what we're doing. We don't have set 9 to 5 hours either. We've got outcomes. We know what we're working towards. If you can do that in 4 hours, I don't even know. I don't even, it's just, is this done? Yes or no? That puts the pressure off us. I think I say so many times, like if I had to be at the desk at 9 o'clock, I think I'd be a lot more stressed than I am now because I can log in at 9:30 and then I could take a break. But I know that I've got to get this thing done. So I'm going to work till I get that thing done.
Mm.
The second thing is you can get caught up doing lots of things that don't add real value or might be a really great idea, but doesn't really fit long term. So we're guilty of this a lot, but we're trying to be really, is this getting us to our goal? Like, do we have to do this? Yes, no. Is this the biggest priority right now? No, then forget it. And I think that helps us be a bit more, what's the word? Like careful in where we spend our time,
Good
which helps.
advice.
I mean, we still work heaps and it's not ideal and it's still a lot, but it doesn't, it's really cliche though, but when you're doing something that you're really excited about, like you enjoy doing it. And I think for us, we still enjoy what we're doing.
Yeah. You have to.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
yeah,
otherwise, people, and I've seen this happen, people who aren't enjoying what they're doing, they stop.
100%.
So,
100%.
it's a long, long journey.
Yeah.
Um, let's finish on future plans. So,
Okay.
what does the future look like for Humaneer? And like, I realize I'm talking to somebody who's a co-founder of a company that's still on a journey. So, I'm not going to ask you about the 5 to 10 year horizon. Like, what does the next 6 to 12 months look like?
More customers on Mac, more traction within the SME market, more partnerships so people know about Mac. We really want to be, I mean, we've got big plans, Colin, I think,
I know.
as founders, you do. We would love to be that product like Xero is for accounting. Mac is for HR. If you have a HR thing, you can log on to Mac, you can ask Mac a question, you can get your answer, you can build your confidence. It helps you run your business more effectively. So that is kind of, I guess, our end goal would be that. And there's nothing kind of stopping us right now. So that's why it's exciting, scary, hard. But
But a big
why not?
opportunity.
Yeah, it's there. We've built it. We've got the expertise. Now we just need to get it into the hands of users.
Yeah, for sure. Any any last parting words of advice for other founders that are getting onto this journey?
I think someone told me something and it didn't really resonate until probably this year, was that if it was easy, everyone would do it. Everyone's got the idea. I guarantee flitter of an idea will pass nearly everyone's thought process of, oh, I could turn that into a business, or I could do that. But actually doing it and sticking to it and being able to pivot and be adaptable and be flexible and not take things personally, because people are going to hate what you're doing and not like your product and feel very comfortable telling you that. It's hard. Find your people outside of work, like your family and your friends and your core group, but also find your people in your work. Doesn't have to be like your co-founders, but people in the startup ecosystem space. They get what you're going through. People that work a 9-to-5 job never understand like what we do. They're like, what are you doing? So find people that understand, because guarantee you that they've been there on the journey. They can either share some lessons, or they can just sit there and celebrate with you, or commiserate with you if you need. But it's such a wonderful, supportive space. So find your people to get you through.